Can you believe it, guys? We're now on to month 3 of our craft club, and this is all about our TriColour Aqua pens. Now, when it comes to the index cards, you can see just 3 of many techniques that you'll be able to follow along with. Now, when it comes to the back of the index cards, it lets you see you've got 70 pieces within the pocket. Now, it's all very well looking at it on the index card, but let's have a look inside the pocket. Now, you are going to be getting your booklet that's going to be stepping you through 8 awesome techniques that you'll be able to do. Now, you're going to be getting them in pictures and words, and you've got that booklet inside already good to go. Now, when it comes to the actual techniques, you're going to be needing your actual TriColour pens. Now, you've got 3 pens. However, you've actually got 9 colours in total. Now, they're going to work as standalone. They're going to blend together. They're going to colour perfectly. They're also going to create incredible backgrounds. So that is your TriColour Aqua pens. But then when it comes to all of the other goodies inside, what you're also going to be getting is a pot of your clear embossing powder. Now, to use the embossing powder, you're going to need a translucent, clear, sticky ink pad. That one is included as well. But then if you're wanting to do different backgrounds and different techniques with your stamps, you're going to need a water spritz. Now, that's included as well. But then also, to do so many fab techniques, you're going to be wanting to use some stamps. Well, we have put a full pack of stamps included for you as well. Now, when it comes to the actual stamps, you're getting 16 in total. You've got florals, you've got butterflies, you've got embellishments, you've got bumblebees, you've got leaves, and you've got sentiments, all included to start you off. Now, with these being TriColour Aqua pens, you need watercolour card. Well, we have put watercolour card in there for you to get you started. Now, when it comes to these, you are going to be getting 12 sheets for you to start with. But what we're also doing is we are putting in some resist pattern sheets. Now, this is watercolour card, but what you've got is kind of like a clear emboss already done for you in the actual watercolour card. Now, you're going to be getting 3 different designs, and you're going to be getting 3 of each. So that's where the 9 sheets come in total. Now, you're going to do a wash with the colour, and that design resists, hence the name. But to do the sentiments on your cards, that's included. So you've got your die-cut sentiments. All of these are on watercolour card as well. So you can go over with your aqua pens. You've got 18 die-cut sentiments in total. Love, hello, and smile. But then to actually make the cards and make your projects, you need your card blanks. So we've put them in there as well. You've got 8 in total. You've got 4 in your white, and you've got 4 in the black. And then to finish it off, to send it to the recipient, you need the envelopes. Well, we've put them in there as well. You've got your 8 envelopes that you're going to be able to pop your finished cards inside and send them on their way. All of that, of course, comes in your brand new month 3 craft club. It's all about the TriColour Aqua pens. So if you do the resist when it comes to the stamps, if you do the resist when it comes to the resist watercolour card, if you want to do a wash, or if you want to do your own funky background, you can absolutely do that. And you can do all of that with month number 3 from the craft club, which is all about the TriColour Aqua Marker pens. Now, when it comes to month 3 of our craft club, which is all about the TriColour Aqua pens, we're going to create this beautiful little card. Now, when it comes to this card, this is going to be a stamped resist background, and we are going to then do exactly that. That stamp will resist the background. So what we're going to do to start with is let's go in with a piece of our watercolour cardstock that's included. Now, for this one, you will need a little cup of water, and you will also need a paintbrush. Now, if you've got one that's maybe about an inch, maybe even half an inch, where it comes to the bristles at the top, that's going to be absolutely perfect. So we've got them good to go, ready at the side. Now, we need our stamps. So for this one, what I'm going to do is let's go in with a beautiful rose head here, or it could be a peony, or it could actually be a number of different florals. So I've got my stamp, and then I'm going to bring in my stamping platform. So if I bring in my stamping platform, I'm just going to pop my cardstock on, and then I'm going to go in with my stamp into the middle here. Now when it comes to this stamp, it's going to work on so many different stamping platforms. It doesn't have to be our 6x6, it would fit on the 4x4 as well. And then what we're also going to need is our translucent clear ink pad. We're going to need our embossing powder, and we're going to need a heat tool as well. So once you've got all them ready to go, what we're going to do is we're going to take our translucent clear ink pad, and we're going to then stamp onto our actual floral. Now when it comes to this, you're not going to see any ink. It is a clear ink pad. It's what we call a sticky ink pad, and this is where your embossing powder is going to stick to the actual ink. So all that I'm then going to do is I'm just going to come along, and I'm just going to create my own little background. So I'm going to press that impression onto the watercolour card. Now once again, you won't necessarily see anything because it is clear. You will, however, at your own eyes, if you start to tilt your cardstock, you will start to see the shine of that impression. You can't see it on screen, but I can see it here. And then all that I'm going to do is I'm just going to apply that translucent clear ink pad onto my stamp, and then once again, where I can see visually the actual outline of that stamp, I'm just going to come along, and then I'm just going to position that further down, and we're just going to press that into place. We're going to then remove that one. We're going to take the translucent clear ink pad once again, and we're just going to repeat that process until we've created our own little background. Now, if it does overlap, if the stamped impression does overlap, it doesn't matter. It adds to that effect. However, I am aiming to go for a nice random backdrop. So I've done my third one, and then what I'm just going to do is I'm going to go in once again, and then I'm just going to reapply that translucent clear ink pad. I'm going to bring it back in. I'm going to come off the page down here, press that in, and then because I know I've still got some ink at this part, what I'm going to do, so I'm not wasting it, I'm going to come up to the top here, I'm going to go at an angle, and then I'm going to press that into place. So once you're happy with the backdrop you've created, what you can then do is come in with your embossing powder. So we're going to come in with the embossing powder. We're just going to then take the lid off, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to come in with a piece of cardstock, and then I'm going to sprinkle my powder over the top. Now what happens is that stamped impression you've just done stays sticky until we put our embossing powder over the top. So you can just start to see, there we go, you can see that outline of that floral head now. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back onto the other part and sprinkle all of that on. Now don't worry, if this is something new to you, you're not wasting all this powder. All that I'm going to do is, in actual fact, you've used very, very little. That can just go back into your little container. Now, as you can see there, there's very, very little amount that I've actually used. And then just to make sure that I'm happy with that coverage, I'm just going to go back once again, sprinkle that on, making sure that I've not missed anything, but also making sure I don't put my finger or thumb into the embossing powder, because at the moment, that's just sitting on that translucent clear ink. If I go over with my finger or anything, I'm going to smudge it and smear it. You can see we've got that backdrop already starting to come to life. So all that I'm now going to do is, let's do that again, decant that back into the container, and then I'm going to put the lid over the top. And then we're going to bring in our heat tool. So let's move my stamping mat out the way, and then I'm bringing in my heat tool here, and I'm going to put that on to the setting 2, so the main setting. I'm just going to let that come to temperature just for a few moments, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start in this top corner here, and as the powder melts, I'm going to start to roll back and forwards all the way down until all of that impression has melted. So once I can see by my eyes that it's starting to melt, what I'm then going to do is move. Now I'm going to tilt that up, maybe, so we're going to start here and work our way along. So maybe you'll just see that starting to melt. And what that also does is creates that resist. It's creating that barrier when you come to apply your ink. So once it's melting, what we're going to do is we're just going to travel all the way along, nice and slow, but don't hover over the top. As soon as it's melted, you're wanting to move. So I'm just going to put that down, and then I'm just going to grab it at a safer area once again. You know, be careful when it comes to your fingers. Alternatively, what you can do, and what is best, is do it like laying down. I'm just lifting it up so it's a little bit easier for you to see on screen. And it only takes a few seconds for it to melt. So once it starts to melt, what we can then do is travel on to our next part. So letting it do its thing, go from side to side. Don't waft your heat tool, because what you could do is you could cause some air, and then that could start to blow off any of the powder, which you don't want. You want to have that nice impression of that rose, or whichever stamp die that you use. So let's go in, let's then let that finish off once you've got to the bottom, and then there we go. I'm happy that we've now got our finished backdrop with our rose stamp. So if I tilt it that way, so we can just see that little bit of glisten when it comes to the impression. But this is when it comes to life, because what we're going to do is we're going to bring in our TriColour Aqua pens. Now I'm going to use my glass mat. You can use a craft mat, you can use a tile, you can use any non-porous surface. And then I'm going to go in with the sunflower. So I'm going to scribble onto my glass mat. I'm also going to go in with the rose pink, and then I'm going to scribble. And then what I'm also going to do is let's go in with the bud green, and we're going to do a bit of a scribble. And then we can go in with the peacock blue, go in with a little bit of a scribble, and then last but by no means least, let's also go in with some of the orchid as well. Now I might not use it all, but I've got 5 main colours there to start me off. And then this is when we're going to bring in our water and also our paintbrush. So what I'm going to do to start with is I'm just going to dip my paintbrush into the water, and then I'm just going to put a light coating over the top, just to lightly dampen the cardstock. And because this is watercolour cardstock, this is what it's for. It's the perfect card. And then I'm going to go in again, just lightly with some water, and then I'm going to go into that orchid, and I'm going to start to pick that up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go side to side. And then what happens is that starts to resist. That heat emboss resists that colour. And then I can just go in. And I'm only going to go so far. If you want to go a little bit deeper, you can do. I'm just going to clean off that colour. And then what we can then do is we can go into the blue. And I'm just going to pick some of that blue up. I'm going to dab it off because I don't want it overly strong. But then I'm going to go back and forwards once again. Now that really shows off that resist effect that you can see here. So we're just going to go in. I'm going to go in with a little bit more darker of the blue. And then what we can then do is take that colour off. So we're just repeating that process all the way down. So then what I can then do is come in, and then I'm going to go in with a little bit of this green, this bud green. And then we're going to do the same again. So we're going to create our own little rainbow effect. So I'm going to take some of that water off, and I want that a little bit darker. So we're going to go in. Each time cleaning that ink off of your paintbrush. So what we can then do is take that off. I'm just going to dab some of that water off my glass mat. And then what we can then do is we can go in with that yellow, that beautiful sunflower. And then we can add that in. Take some excess off, go in with that little bit of a darker tone, and then what I'm going to do, clean that off, take that excess water off onto my glass mat. If you've got a little cloth or microfiber cloth, that will work. And then I'm just going to pick up some of that red, that rose pink, and go into the bottom corner. So then what I'm going to do here is if I just take some of that excess colour off, so let's just dab that off. Take that one off. I'm just going to take some of that water off. I'm just going to dry it ever so slightly. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to blend these back in together. So take some of that off, blend that in. Don't worry about cross-contaminating some colours. It works really, really well. And the heavier the colour, of course, the darker it'll be. The more subtler that you go, like I have done here, the more of that pastel tone that you're going to get. At this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give that a light dry. Now, I'm not going to stay over the top too much because I don't want to reactivate that embossing powder. It's just enough to kind of set the colour, set that water layer that we've just done there. Because what I can do if I wanted to, I could then come back in. Let's go in with the bud green here, and we can go a bit darker if we want to. Take some of that off. Let's go in with a little bit more of the yellow. Take some of that excess colour off. Let's go in more with that rose pink, and then just start to then enhance it. If you want it darker, you can do that. If you want it lighter, just go in with some more water on your paintbrush and then start to clean that off. That'll give you a dry brush, and then that just means you can come in and then just start to overblend the whole backdrop. So once you're happy with that, what that colour has done, it has, as I say, it's gone in and it's resisted all of that colour. So you've got that rose all the way in that backdrop that we can see here. What we can then do is, let me just take a cloth, and I'm just going to take some of that excess colour off for now. And then I'm going to come in with one of our die cut sentiments. So I've just chopped that out, that strip that's already included. And then what you can do is either by doing what I've done here with the background, or you can then just come in with your actual pens. You don't have to use them with any water-based medium if you don't want to. If you just want to go in and colour direct over the top, you can do. So we've gone in with the orchid there. Let's go in with a little bit of the blue, so the peacock blue. And I tend to keep them in the actual die cut holder before I then start to pop them out. Let's go in with a kingfisher, and then we're just going to lightly colour. So we're going to go all the way along at an angle. So we're going to have a really strong, vibrant sentiment against a lovely light pastel background. So then once we've gone in with that one, let's go in with our bud green. And then what we can do is colour that in. We can then come along once again now with the sunflower. And don't worry about cross-contaminating once again when it comes to the nib, because all that you need to do is, if you do pick up some colour, all that you're going to do onto your glass mat or another bit of card, just take that excess colour off, and then you're good to go. And then last but by no means least, let's go in with a little bit of scarlet here. So let's go in with the scarlet, finish that one off. So you've got best of both worlds. You can either go in direct, or then you can go in with a paintbrush and water and start to blend it out. So all that you would then need to do is just pop that one out, and then once that's out, that's then ready to go onto your card or your project. What I'm going to do once again is, let's go in with my heat tool and let's just finish setting this off. And once again, just being careful that I don't spend too long over my pre-stamped image, because I don't want to reactivate that emboss. I just want to dry off my cardstock. So we can then finish off by going back and forwards. And compared to the finished sample that we'll show you once again at the end, we've gone lighter with this. And this is the thing with the TriColour Aqua pens, with them being water-based, it's up to you. If you want it to be strong, you can do that by adding colour. If you want it to be subtle with the pastel, then you just add more of the water, or you can then have a play and blend the colours together. But once I've then gone in and dried that off, we're just going to go over our sentiment as well. What we can then do is bring in our card blank. So if I bring in my card blank here, I'm going to go in with a little matting layer that I've already cut for my actual backdrop, and I'm going to add in some of my adhesive from my tape runner. So we're going to go all the way around. You will find that your cardstock will start to bend and buckle. You can counteract that by adding some heat to the opposite side, as I was doing. But don't worry, as long as you've got good adhesion onto the back, what will happen is that will stick, no problem at all. I'm just going to shape that ever so slightly. That one can go into place here. And then again, doing that counterbalance with that white when it comes to that rose, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with a strip of white just to the side there. That can go in with our tape. I'm not adding any colour, I'm not doing anything to it, I'm just creating that side panel. That one can go to the side here. We can then take our tape runner once again. We're going to work our way round the edge. We're going to bring in our card blank. Remember, you are going to be getting 8 of them. So that one can go into place here. Sit that into the middle and press that one in. And then what we can then do is then we can come in with the sentiment. I've gone in with a piece of white and a piece of black card and created a little tab for my sentiment to sit onto. That one is just going to sit nicely into there. We're going to press that into place. Now for this one, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in with our tacky glue and I'm just going to add that to the back there. So we're going to add that on little dots of our tacky glue. That one can then just sit nicely in the middle. Press that in, let that grab, let that do its thing. And then once I'm happy with that, what I can then do is come along with my foam pads, add a little bit of height to the back here. So add that one on, let's add that one on, and then what we can then do is add that to the bottom of our card. Alternatively, you could go in the middle, you could go to the top, but I'm going to come semi-way down that we can see here. And then if I put that one up for you to see, and then if I bring in the finished one that I'd done before, it lets you see that you're going to get completely different look depending on whether you go really strong with your colour, whether you go in really light when it comes to the water. It's entirely up to you, but that is the joyous thing, and that is what makes it so much fun when it comes to anything that's water-based, these ones being your TriColour Aqua pens, and that's just one of the things that you can be doing. Now when it comes to our craft club, month number 3, all about the TriColour Aqua Markers, we're going to be creating this wash background with the silhouette stamped. Look at that, that's all done from 3 colours of the pens. Now to start off, what we're going to need is a piece of that watercolour cardstock that you get included. Now what I am going to do is I'm going to bring in 2 of the pens. Now I'm only going to use 3 of the colours. So what I'm going to bring in before I choose my colours is my water. I'm going to bring in a paintbrush, and then I'm also just going to bring in a wet cloth there ready to take off any excess water. So what we can do to start with is let's choose our colours. So I'm going to go in with the sunflower. So I can go straight onto my glass mat and I'm going to lay that colour down. Now you can do it on a craft mat, or you can do it onto a tile or a Gemini cotton plate, something that is a non-porous surface. I'm also going to go in with that bud green, and then what I'm also going to do within that same pen, let's go in with a peacock blue. So now that I've got my colour on my glass mat, what I'm then going to do is I'm going to dip my paintbrush into the water, and then I'm going to give that a really, really nice covering of the water, and I'm just going to give that nice flow left to right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in once again, pick up some water on my paintbrush, and I'm going to go into the blue, and we're going to start at the top. So we're just going to come down maybe about 2/3 of the way. I'm going to go in again at the top there with that little bit of darkness. Now because it's water-based, you can always come back and blend the colour out. And as you can see here, you can always go in and add more depth if you want to. So let's clean our water brush off just now, and then let's take that excess off. So now that I've got that excess colour off, I'm just going to dab back in again, take a little bit of water off, and then I'm going to go into the yellow, and then I'm going to go straight across, back and forwards, straight across, side to side. Now I'm not going to completely cross over just yet. What I'm going to do is I'll blend that one out just shortly, but then I'm going to clean that colour off, and then once again, I'm going to go into a bit of tissue, take that excess colour and water off, add a little bit of clean, and then just dab that into that bud green. Now to make it easier for myself, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn that around. What I will do as well is just move that out the way for now. I'm going to take that blue tone of ink off. Otherwise, I'm going to then pull that in with the green and I might get a bit of a muddy colour, which I don't want. I want to keep it nice, fresh and green. So we're going to go in, back, side to side with that bud green. And then what I'm going to do at the moment is let's bring in our heat tool. And then I'm going to dry that off. I'm going to heat set that because at the moment it's still a little bit light than what I would like. So just set that off onto the cardstock and then only need to do it just for a few moments. It doesn't have to be completely dry, but if you are drying it with a heat tool, it will start to bend and buckle. So just go on to the back of it and also start to heat that off. That will then start to help and then that will start to flatten it off as well. I've got a little bit of water effect there. I'm not too concerned because we're going to come over with a wee bit more colour. So what I'm then going to do is I'm going to go back in. Let's just take some of that excess colour off. I'm going to go in with the blue here. Now this will be really strong here. And then we're just going to then slide side to side with the actual blue. If we need to add more, then we can do. So I'm just going to go back into the peacock blue, wasn't it? Here we go. In with the peacock blue. Now I'm putting it into a different part of my glass mat because I've got water in with this layer here. Now if I go direct back in, there's a chance that that water will then be sucked up into the actual nib, which I don't want. So if you ever go to apply any ink onto your glass mat, craft mat tile, just make sure that you're doing it in a fresh part, that there's no water. And then I'm just going to just ever so slightly just dab that into the water and then I'm going to go back again. And then we can start to go in. With it being water-based, we can come along in a moment. For instance, let's then just clean that off. I'm just going to dab some of that excess off, a little bit of that water, and then we can start to blend that out. So you can always start to blend out. So if it's too dark for you, you can blend it out. If it's too light for you, you can always come along and add more colour. Now, once again, I'm going to take that pool of water off, and then I'm going to go back in now with the sunflower and let's add that down and then I'm going to go in with a paintbrush. So it's all about playing, it's having fun, and that's what you're going to be able to do when it comes to your TriColour Aquas, and that is just have fun. So we're going to add more of that yellow, so we're just going to add that in. I'm going to take that colour off, I'm going to dry it off, and then we're going to go back in with that bud green. Make sure we're nice and dry, add that on, and then I'm going to pick that up with a paintbrush. So if we go in, and you can see so strong when it comes to that bud green, but you've got the ability to dip into the water, take the excess off, and blend it all out. So what I'm going to do at this point here is I'm just going to take a little bit more water, and then I'm going to start to blend those colours together. I'm going to turn that around, take that excess colour off, make sure my brush is nice and clean, and then I'm going to go back into the blue and the yellow and we're going to start to blend that out. So once that you're happy with that, whether you want to go light, whether you want to go dark, it's entirely up to you, but we can then start to finish that off by heat setting it. So let's go in with our heat tool. You can absolutely let this dry naturally if you want to. Give it an hour or so and let it do its thing. If you do let it dry naturally, it will dry relatively flat. It's only because we are adding an intense heat to it that it's starting to bend and buckle. It is normal, it will happen with a heat tool, don't worry about it. All you need to do is flip it on its side and heat from the back, and that will help even it out. So what we can then do is once we're finished with that, I'm going to move that to the side for a second. Let's take all that colour off. Because it's water-based, any of that excess water will start to then create a faux bleach effect if I turn my cardstock around. So once we're nice and clean, dry that off, flip it over, dry the back of it as well. You'll spend a wee bit more time than me, at least this is then shown you. So what we can then do, flip it, finish off, and then we can bring in our stamping mat and our stamps. So what we can do is let's bring them all in here, and then we're going to pick a couple of them. So I'm going to go in with this lovely kind of like wildflower down at the bottom here, and then we also need to come in with our sentiment. So we'll choose that thank you. So let's move that, and then let's take that one as well. And then what I'm also going to do is we need to bring in our ink to stamp with. So let's go in with our Noir Black. I'm going to use the waterproof, and we can set that into place. If it's finding that it's still bending or buckling, just shape it so we can get it relatively flat. Or the other option that you can do, if you've got one, is you can go in with a stamping platform, with a magnetic base, hold it down. So either or, it's entirely up to yourself, whichever way you feel comfortable. But let's go in now with our stamping platform. I'm going to go in with that wildflower, press that in, hold it in, and then we're going to tap the ink. So this is where we've created our background, and then now we're going to go over the top with our silhouette floral. So let's then ink it up. I'm going to then turn it on itself. But then as you can see, it's a lot wider than I want. So I'm just going to come down to the bottom. I'm going to come off the page ever so slightly. And then we're going to press. And then we're going to release. And then this is where we're starting to get that wildflower backdrop along the bottom. But then we need to finish that off. So let's go in once again with the ink, black, Noir Black, ink up. We're going to bring this back in. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to come to the side. And I'm going to cross over ever so slightly so that you are going to get that continuous flow. Once you're happy, you're going to press. And then once that's done, we're going to then lift it up. We're going to take it off. We can then come in with our sentiment that says thank you. Move that to the side. Same ink pad, ink up, apply the colour, and then we can then come in with our backdrop we've just done, and then we can then position that where we want, press. Once you've given it a good amount of pressure to pop that ink into place, we can then lift, and there is our watercolour background with the silhouette. So all that we need to do is to keep it very, very simple. Let's go in with a black matte layer. I'm just going to then turn that on itself. We're going to add our adhesive. So that can go into place, lift it, sit it over the top, and then carefully, because it might still be just a little bit damp, you'll let yours completely dry first. Press that down, add our tape, and all of this, with the exception of your ink pad that you'll have at home and your stamping platform, all you need to do is get creative with your TriColours, create a backdrop, and then there we go. There is our thank you card where we have done that watercolour background. We've used the silhouette stamps along the bottom, but then the heavier the colour you go, it's going to look different. And that's what you're able to do with anything that's aqua based, the TriColour Aqua Markers. You can then decide, do you want to go bright? Do you want to go light? Do you want to go pastel? Do you want to go subtle? It's entirely up to you, but that's what you can do from the TriColour Aqua Markers, month number 3. Now, when it comes to one of the techniques that you can do with a craft club, month number 3, all about the TriColour Aqua Markers, you can stamp with them. So you can stamp and then use that spritz tool to create that explosion of a background. Now, to start off with, what we are going to do is we're going to take a piece of our watercolour card. Now, that is your cardstock that's included. And then let's take the butterfly stamp. So we're going to bring in the butterfly stamp. So we can set that to the side, and then all that we need to do is bring in our stamping platform and our stamping mat. So let's go in with our stamp, pop that into place, and then what we're going to do is we're going to choose our colours. So when it comes to our TriColour Aqua pens, let's go in, and then, well, let's just do a lovely selection. So I'm going to put a cardstock underneath just so that you can see it a little bit better once I come to apply the actual colour. So we're going to go in, let's go in with the orchid, and then what we're going to do, it's not completely flat, but at an angle, we're going to go in and then we're going to colour over our stamp. So I'm going to go down the centre of that butterfly, and then what I can then do is I can then come along, let's go in now with the peacock blue, and then I'm going to colour down the side and overlapping that orchid. slightly, and then I'm going to keep it symmetrical. So let's come down that side. So then once you've done the blue, what we can then do is then we can then come along and then let's do the Kingfisher next to the blue. So we're going to colour all the way down. We're going to colour all the way down. And then once we've gone into that side, what we can then do is let's go in with the yellow. So let's go in with the sunflower, and then we're going to colour the remaining of the butterfly wings. So we can come all the way down. We're going to do exactly the same. Now for this one, I tend to start on the outside and then come into that Kingfisher just because it is a light yellow. Although what you can do is then just wipe that excess colour off so that you've got no cross-contamination. So take that excess off for now. And then I'm going to then come along, turn our cardstock, and then I'm going to pop my stamp where I want it. And then once I'm happy with the positioning, I'm going to go along and then I'm going to press. So we're just going to press that into place. And then once we're happy, we're going to lift. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our water spritz. So we can then come along. Let's move all that out the way. And then I'm just going to then open the top. Now I've already popped some water, just water out of the tap. And then towards the edges of the butterfly wings, I'm just going to get that started. I'm just going to press. So I'm just pressing. So what we're starting to do is we're starting to create that explosion. It looks so, so cool. I'm going to let that just do its thing for a moment. I'm going to set that just to the side of me. What I'm then also going to do is I'm going to come in with another piece of that watercolour card. And all that I've done is I've just trimmed it down, and I've trimmed it to 4 inches by 2 inches. Before I go any further, I'm actually going to bring this back in because I don't want that colour to explode anymore. So I'm going to take a bit of kitchen roll or microfiber cloth, and I'm just going to pick up some of that excess water. So that's going to stop that explosion of colour, and I can set that one to the side for now. Let's come back in with our little strip, and then I'm going to go back in now with that yellow, or the actual name being the sunflower. Lay that one down. Let's do a little bit of the bud green, and then let's do a little bit of the orchid. So we're going to go in with that one, just a little bit, in with our water, in with our paintbrush, and then I'm just going to dip that in, and then I'm going to start with the yellow, and I'm just going to go quickly back and forwards, dip into the water, pick up a bit of green, quickly back and forwards. I'm just going to take some of that excess colour off, into the water, let's dab a little bit excess, a bit too much, pick up that colour, and then go along the bottom. So I'm going to then pick up again, go a little bit more heavy-handed, clean my brush, let's take all that water off, and then I'm going to go in with the green again, and then go a little bit heavier-handed. So we've got more of a stronger green, take that colour off, go in with the yellow, and then start to then blend that in. So we're just going to blend all of that one in together, and then what we can then do, if you want to, is then just dab in with water, and then kind of like where the lines connect, I'm just going in with the end of my paintbrush. That's going to create kind of like a faux bleach. What that water is doing, it's actually lifting the colour up. It's what we call faux bleach. So then I'm just going to take all that excess off, like that. Then we're going to come in with our heat tool. I'm going to bring back in our butterfly, and then I'm going to finish by heat setting that. So I'm going to move that one out the way, and then I'm just going to let the heat tool do its thing. It's going to dry off all of that ink, so that explosion effect that is created, that's going to stay in place. It's not moving anymore. And then what we can then do is just finish that heat set. I'm also going to then just move that to the side. Let's bring this one in, and I'm going to let that do its thing. And we can see where we've got those stripes, where that water has then created that faux bleach effect. So we're just going to come along, let that dry the cardstock out. As it dries out, it starts to flatten. I'm just going to flip that in on itself, make sure the back's nice and dry, flip it again, make sure it's nice, it's dry, it's ready to go. I'm going to do the same with the butterfly because I want to finish that one off. Make sure we're nice, we're dry on the back. Once you've done that one, what we can then do is then we can come in with one of the die cut sentiments. Now I've just chopped this out from the bottom of my pad, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in now with the actual black. Now the black, you can go into your glass mat, pick it up with a paintbrush and water and colour over the top, or if you do just want to use it as a standalone colouring medium on this die cut sentiment, which is already die cut in watercolour card, so it's done in that perfect cardstock for you. We're just going to colour. We're going to colour over the top. We're going to work all our way along. With it being a water-based pen, I would just leave that a moment or two before I pop it out, but then once you've popped it out, you've got that really strong, vibrant love within that black that's going to sit, and it's actually going to complement the backdrop that we've just done. So let's bring this back in. Let's bring in a black matte layer. So all that I need to do is add my tape to the back. So work our way around with your adhesive of choice. That's going to sit on our mat. We can then bring in our card blank. We're going to do exactly the same again. We're just going to pop our adhesive on the back, work our way around, all four sides, pop a bit in the middle so that you know you're going to get that good structure and that strength. That's going to then sit onto our card blank. And then what I'm going to do is if I bring in our little panel that we've done, let's add our adhesive onto that panel. This is then going to sit at the bottom, like so. Press that in, and then it just sits there. It's just ending, it's not doing anything. So what I've done is I've gone in with a little strip of black cardstock, and I've cut that to the same width, which is 4 inches, and it's only a couple of millimeters in thickness. And for this one, what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to go in with my tacky glue, and then I'm just going to go into the back of this strip. We're just going to then essentially block it off. We're creating that fine line that then just separates that top to the bottom. Bring in our sentiment. Once again, I'm going to go in with my tacky glue. You can use any of your adhesives that you want, but I do find with the tacky glue and the little applicator, it works a treat. That's then just going to sit over the top like so. So you're pulling those black layers from the back to the front, and then you've got that lovely sentiment that says love. You've created your spritzed butterfly. You've created your little backdrop base for the bottom. And then once again, if you go in really light with colours, you'll get one effect. If you go really strong, you'll get an opposite effect. But again, add in that spritz from the water, go really, really strong with the water spritz, or just keep it very subtle. You're always going to get a completely different look, no matter what colour and medium that you use from the TriColour Aquas, which is all, of course, from our craft club, month number 3, TriColour Aqua Markers.